Welcome back. I'm going to discuss a few topics that have come to light about Starfield since Starfield Direct ended. And the big one was the IGN interview between Ryan McCaffrey and Todd Howard. Now, the interview was actually recorded before the Starfield Direct was actually shown publicly. But one of the first topics they actually did hit on is game performance on the Xbox consoles. The Xbox Series S is going to be locked in at 30 frames per second at 2K, and Xbox Series X is going to be locked in at 30 frames per second at 4K. Now, it did come out later, not during that interview, that PC will be able to go to 60 frames per second. Now, in answering the question about 30 frames being locked in on the consoles, basically Todd Howard said they want their world to look fantastic, but they locked it in at 30 for consistency. Now, me personally, I don't really know what the big deal is about 60 frames per second, mostly because I feel like 60 FPS is really important in high-speed type games like a Valorant, Overwatch, Warframe, games like that. Games where there's a lot of quick movement. I would want 60. I wouldn't want 30 myself. But in a game like Starfield, even the combat seems a little bit slower pace, so I actually don't mind the 30 because especially like in the open world, the graphics look amazing. I would rather have the graphics than the 60. But hey, everybody has their own taste, and there's really no wrong take on this. Also in the interview, they got to talking about games that are similar or games that Todd Howard feels like Starfield was kind of replicate in a way. And a game that I would think a lot of people have made comparisons to, especially with the look and appeal of Aquila City, is Red Dead Redemption 2. Now, Todd Howard kind of explained it in a way that Red Dead Redemption 2 made you feel like you were in the Old West and making you feel that fantasy type role of that situation. And that's what he was talking about with Starfield. He said, we want people to feel that sci-fi space explorer type of experience. He also talked about the minute-by-minute action from Bethesda's previous games, Fallout and Elder Scrolls. So I think this game's sitting pretty good for kind of the direction they were trying to go. Another thing I really liked hearing from Todd Howard in this interview was he talked about how long Elder Scrolls has been going, and people have been playing that for over a decade. So they kind of had that approach going into developing Starfield for the longevity that people might be playing this for a decade plus. So that did go into the development process and mindset, which that sounds fantastic that they are actually thinking that far ahead, because I don't even know if they thought that far ahead back when they made Elder Scrolls. Then they talked a little bit about expansions. Obviously, they're not going to talk a whole lot about that, but we did have different bundle packs to purchase Starfield actually drop, and all the premium editions actually come with access to the first expansion that is going to come, and that is going to be called the Starfield Shattered Space First Story Expansion. And we don't know when that's going to drop, but if you did get any of the extra bonus packages, you will be getting access to that. But one of the things that Todd Howard did mention about expansions and future content was they do have features that they want to add, and they have more story that they want to bring. So obviously the Shattered Space part of it will be the first expansionary story that will be coming. And for everybody that likes to find those little hidden treasures around the world, he said, yes, they have a ton of those. And one of the questions he actually had to the community was, how long is it going to take really for some of them to be found? So basically, he's challenging us to go find them all. And I am sure there's probably some out there that probably never even get found. Now, Ryan McCaffrey did share some experiences about his 1 hour of gameplay time. So he is probably the only person that has played Starfield outside of the development team and people on Xbox. But basically, the highlight of Ryan McCaffrey's takeaway is the game looks great. It looks smooth. He played it on Xbox Series X on 30 frames per second. He said it looked fantastic. But the most important takeaway is, he said an hour was literally nothing to get a grasp of what Starfield actually is. Now, another thing that came to light here over the past couple days was some interesting text in the Xbox.com page for Starfield that talked about trade routes between outposts. Now, it seems like they have since taken back this text, but I did check on the Xbox store and it was still there. But basically, it's in the second sentence before you. Build outpost and hire a crew to passively extract materials and establish cargo links to transfer resources between them. That is the part that we haven't really heard about before, the established cargo links to transfer resources. We hadn't heard anything or seen any kind of gameplay around that. So then that leads me to wonder what else is in the game that we have not been shown or talked about or anything. So let me know down in the comments below what you think is in the game that they have not shown off before. Now, Todd Howard also made an appearance on the Kinda Funny Xcast. The link will be down below if you want to check it out for yourself. But I'm going to go over a couple of highlights that were actually mentioned in that video. There are going to be better accessibility features in Starfield than previous Bethesda games, with a large font mode included. And you know those skill trees that we've been talking about and looking at? Well, those skill trees and those skills that you unlock and rank up, those badges actually go on your spacesuit. So getting those skills and leveling them up isn't just about your skills, but also about making your character look good. There will also be no fishing in the way of using a pole and fishing line, but it seems like as far as killing fish or wildlife that lives in water, it seems like that will be there. Probably just gonna be using more of a gun or some other kind of form to get your fish. There was also a mention of weather moving in, so it seems like weather will be off and on, not just a constant, to whichever planet you are on. Next thing is there will be no land vehicles in Starfield, and the mention of using boost packs actually being the most efficient way to probably move around the planetary surface. Now this goes back to a point that I've kind of made, that the boost pack skill might be one of the best early game perks just because it helps you move around that much quicker. For all you explorers out there that want to go out and explore and scan all the planets and all the things, well, you are going to be able to take your scan data and sell it at vendors. And if you have 100% scanned an entire planet with all the resources, the fauna and the flora, that will be worth a lot of credits. You will also be able to have a robot crew if you so choose, but it seemed like there was some limitations there, or maybe not as many robots in the game. And one of the last takeaways I did get from the podcast was about ships. Todd Howard mentioned that the ship builder feature is really meant to be later in the game and not really accessible or utilized so much early in the game, as it does require a lot of resources and a lot of credits. So it is meant to be a much further on part of the game. Another thing about ships is if you dock with an enemy ship and take it over, you will need to register it, and there's going to be registration fees for ships that you do take over. And he mentioned this is in the game to kind of keep the economy in balance and keep it from dominoing out of control too fast. So I really enjoyed hearing some of the information from this podcast, as it really helps set the expectations for when you are going to be really utilizing certain features. But that is all I got to cover in this video. Thank you and take care.